All right. Welcome back into Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And hopefully you remember this crew of four. We had a get-together a few weeks back prior to the draft. We talked all 49ers, and we're doing it again tonight because we just had a draft for the ages, folks. So I'm going to go around the horn. I'm going to introduce everybody, and then we'll jump right into it. So to my right is Bay Area Baller 18. You can find his YouTube channel down in the description. Bay, how you doing tonight, my man?
Excellent, Jesse. Thanks for having me. I've been putting out some content, video related. If you like film breakdowns, check out the channel, Bay Area Baller 18. I'm pumped to be here, ready to talk draft.
Perfect. Right below me, I've got Mr. Ben Meyerson. His YouTube channel is also in the description. Ben, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Jesse. Thanks for having me on. As always, I love working with this crew. And hey, if anyone wants to check out the stuff I'm making, you can just look up my name on YouTube, Ben Meyerson. That should take you right to it. And I'm making all kinds of 49ers content. And I have a lot of exciting stuff coming this summer. So people should be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Mr. Niner Wire Sam. Again, his YouTube is down in the description. Sam, how you doing tonight?
What's going on, man? I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Jesse. I mean, this is a great crew. I'm always looking forward to doing stuff with this four. But yeah, guys, you can find me. My Twitter's obviously right there. My YouTube channel is called NinerWire. That's why my @ is NinerWire Sam. I also am a co-host of the podcast Talkin' Niners. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Music. But those are the two places you can find me, plus Twitter. So make sure to check those places out.
Absolutely. Amin the Dream says Ben Meyerson's the GOAT. He loves you.
Absolutely. No, I got to stop on that for a second. Amin is the GOAT. That kid is the GOAT.
Absolutely love it. All right, fellas. Well, let's jump right into this thing. Bay, I'm going to start with you. Favorite pick or picks of the draft? I know this is a tough one because we nailed this.
It is, man. I love several of them. We got to start at pick number 1, Trey Lance. That was the guy I wanted. I'm so excited we have our franchise quarterback. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so excited about what this offense is going to look like. This offense is going to be dynamic. I've been watching 2012 Kyle Shanahan kind of to see what he did with RG3, but he's going to implement so much more stuff. His offense has expanded, so I love the Trey Lance pick to start off. Then you go round 2, pick 48. We got Aaron Banks out of Notre Dame. This guy's a monster, right? When you put on the tape, the first thing you see is he's massive. This guy is huge. And I watched the ACC championship with Clemson and Notre Dame, and that was the game I had my eyes solely focused on Banks, rep in and rep out. He's doing his job. So I really love the Aaron Banks pick. And the last, I could go down, but I'm only going to pick one more that I love, and that was the 5th round, pick 180, Talanoa Hufanga.
Yeah.
I love this guy. When I put on the tape, I hadn't seen much of him, but after we picked him and I'm watching him at USC, this guy is so instinctive, Jesse and Sam and Ben. This guy's instincts are off the charts. He's jumping.
He's a baby Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. You see those flashes of Jamal Adams. In fact, you know how Jamal Adams creates some pass rush, right? Gets some sacks. He's a good pass rusher for his safety. And in the Oregon game, you should have seen the hezzy that Hufanga put on this right tackle. He went right around the right tackle with the hezzy, untouched, sacked the QB. It was sweet. He's a tackle for loss monster. This guy is shooting the gap on the run. He's shooting the gap, getting tackles for losses. The Hufanga pick, I love it. He did have the two broken collarbones at USC. That may be why he slipped down to the 5th. But where that's at, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. CG Ruthless says he has a little Troy Polamalu in him. Yeah, he does. You know, across really, he's almost like Polamalu's size with a Jamal Adams playing style, but again, very aggressive safeties. You said the Oregon game. I did see it. I'm an Oregon fan. So yes, I was there front and center. I was able to see it. So yeah, he's extremely good. Ben, let's go to you. What about you? What were some of your favorite picks in the draft?
So, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Bay Area Baller was saying. You know, I think there were a lot of good picks in this draft. I think you can go up and down and be excited about a lot of what went on. But if I'm zeroing in on one pick, for me, it's actually the Trey Sermon pick. And I think, some people might not love a running back. People don't like taking running backs high. But what I love with Trey Sermon in that pick specifically is the Niners shifting from a primarily zone scheme team in the run game to a power team. And Trey Sermon is going to lead the attack with that. And if you look at this regime's recent history, Trey Sermon's probably the most talented running back to ever come into this room. Yeah. And I think he's just going to add that dimension that the Niners don't have, of that running in between the tackles kind of running back. And I think he could eventually be a 3-down type of guy. I'm really excited just because I think more than anything with Trey Sermon, it's about the Trey Lance pick, because I think those two are going to mesh so well together. And in 2-3 years, we're going to be watching this run attack with 2 power runners from the quarterback and the running back position. And I just think it was great. And specifically with Sermon, the reason I love him is because he's something that we don't necessarily have already. Now, you could compare him to Jeff Wilson, but he's got 20 pounds on Jeff Wilson. He's heavier than he is. He's more of a bruiser than he is. And I think we need that type of guy in our backfield, especially with the way our offense is moving. So I got really excited about that pick, even though I have to be honest, I liked Michael Carter a lot. I probably thought he was going there, but hey, Trey Sermon, I just think a lot of Niners fans weren't even mocking him or considering him. And then once he was picked there, and once you see the other picks, it all starts to make a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely. Well, him and Trey Lance have worked out together in the offseason, so they did build up some chemistry, believe it or not. East Bay Chris says that Sermon is the pick of the draft. He's Debo, but as a running back. Looks like Amin says, my only issue with Trey Lance pick is that will he be a Lamar type? Instead of looking downfield, will he rely on his athleticism? Again, Tubular Bike, Amin, CG Ruthless, all of them echo the sentiments there. They love Sermon. So, yeah, very good choice. Sam, what about you?
So let's talk about 2 guys. First guy is Hufanga as well. As Bay Area Ballers said, this dude is a baby Jamal Adams. And speaking of that, one thing I found kind of funny about that with the tape, I mean, the tape looked like Jamal Adams. And then you look at on paper, both guys are 6'1". Jamal Adams is 214. Hufanga is 215. That just screams baby Jamal Adams. And as Jessie said, Troy Polamalu, both USC safeties, both have long hair. I'm not going to go any further with that. The one thing he does need to work on, the reason he fell to the 5th round, his tackling skills, sometimes he overcommits a little bit, and his routes to the ball have been very inconsistent throughout his career. Those are the 2 things he needs to work on a little bit. But I think when you're behind 2 guys like Jaquaski Tart and like Jimmy Ward, I think that can help fix that right away. And that's why he went 5th round. You're looking for a developmental guy. Hufanga is just that. And I think out of all the 5th round picks we had 3. He definitely has the best chance to be that guy, in my opinion. The other guy I want to talk about, our 3rd round pick, not Trey Sermon, but Ambry Thomas. I wanted a gritty cornerback going into this draft, and Ambry Thomas is just that. And you have this inconsistency issue. That's why he fell to the 3rd round. But when he is on top of his game, he is a beast, man. And I think that's what you want to see in Ambry Thomas. And that really reminds me of Ahkello Witherspoon. And I think a lot of people were looking at Ambry Thomas. They saw a lot of Jason Verrett in him from what I've seen. And I want to watch a bit more film on this guy as well. But from what I've seen so far, this guy's a gritty cornerback. This guy can be a developmental guy or probably start over Mosley. We'll have to see what they do with that. But Ambry Thomas, I think, can make some massive contributions to this team in the very near future. But overall, I really love those drafts. Those are the 2 guys I want to highlight. Obviously, Trey Lance. We've talked about that a lot. And I've already said I would love it, and I do love it. So I'll leave it at that.
For sure. You guys know I was pounding the table for Trey Lance, so of course I love that pick. But I'm going to mention a couple guys that haven't been brought up yet. Elijah Mitchell. So this is a guy with 4.3 speed, but it's 218 pounds. Good luck stopping that in a Shanahan offense. Then another guy, I said I'm an Oregon fan, Diamador Lenore. So a lot of people were hating on this pick. I love it. I think he's got great coverage skills. He's going to fit in real nice. He may end up playing in a nickel spot, but overall, I love what he brings to the table. So those are the ones that I'm probably most excited about. And since they weren't mentioned, I had to give him a little bit of love.
You know why Diamador Lenore is being hated on? Because people on Twitter, I've been seeing this one clip of Ayuk absolutely burning him. And they're like, oh, that's our new guy. There's no way he's going to do well in the NFL. So right. Give this guy a chance, man. We took him in the 5th round. He could be a nickel. From what I've heard, that's probably going to be the plan. is what I would assume. He's a much better nickel cornerback than outside quarterback. But you got to give this guy a chance. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, both can be true, by the way. You can't sit here and tell everybody in the world that Ayuk's a #1 receiver, is going to be an absolute baller, top 10 in the league, and then get mad at the corner that you drafted because he got beat by him. I don't know if you know this, but Ayuk, if he's going to be that good, is going to burn a lot of NFL corners. It's okay. Corners get beat. It's a part of their job. All right, let's move on to maybe a pick that you weren't the biggest fan of. Bay, I'm going to start back with you. What was the pick that you liked the least?
I can't even say I hated this pick, but it's Sam's guy, Ambry Thomas. It's not that I don't like it. It's just he's really inexperienced. He only started for 1 season at Michigan. He was an opt-out, so he didn't play this past year. He only had 57 targets thrown at him. Now, you can say, well, he's locking down his man. They're throwing the other way. You just like to see some more experience. So it's not that I hate the pick. I just think that he might need some seasoning. But I don't even hate the pick. Really, I really liked this draft. That was just the guy I'm kind of picking on. Hopefully he proves me wrong. And I think, he might. Okay.
All right. That's fair. Ben, what about you?
I got to agree with some of the sentiment that Eric was saying, is that I thought this was a really good draft, and I just had trouble picking, one guy where I want to say it's my least favorite pick. So when I did narrow it down, even though I think this is a good pick, I'm not mad. I'm not shaming the pick. I gave it a B-. But I think Aaron Banks, to me, is one of the weaker picks of the draft, because I think people are assuming that he's going to fit into the Shanahan scheme a lot easier than it will be for him to fit into this scheme, because even though he's more of a power guy, and that's where he succeeded in Notre Dame, the 49ers aren't going to really move full into that until we get into the Trey Lance regime. So I still think it's going to be a little while. So I think he's going to have a hard time adjusting to that. And then if you look at him, all of his production, or all of his good qualities, are as a pass protector. He struggles in the run. He doesn't have the burst that some of these other offensive linemen you might see in the second round have. And quite frankly, I think if you just look at the rest of the draft, that's where I have the real issue with the pick. It's not necessarily the player, but when you look, you see guys like Creed Humphrey going 63, Quinn Miners went 98. And then I'm looking at my notes just so I have this correct. And Kendrick Green was at pick 84. So those are 3 guys I just named you could have got later on at the same position. Maybe the 49ers favored Aaron Banks, but to me, I just would have preferred a corner earlier on, because I think you need to take a corner earlier if you're going to get a really good corner. You look where the Niners pick their first corners, pick 100. I was a little taken aback from that, but I mean, it's not a bad.
And there was that they had that QB run before that pick. There was that QB run. Sam's guy got taken the pick before.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. Like, if you look at the draft, there were 2 spots where pick 47 and pick 101, the picks before our second and third round pick, Asante Samuel Jr. gets taken ahead of Aaron Banks. I would have loved that, of course. Me, I'm an FSU guy. But then if you look at the next pick, or the pick after that, 102, the Detroit Lions picked the Syracuse corner, Ifatu Mfiondu. Yeah, right ahead of us. And I think we got jumped a couple times. So I guess I'm a little disappointed from that perspective. And yeah, just with Aaron Banks overall, my issue, again, it's not the player, it's just the value for me, really.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. What about you, Sam?
I got to agree with Ben on this one. It's Aaron Banks for me. And again, love this draft. And it has nothing to do with the player. I think you can never go wrong drafting an offensive lineman. No. And that's another reason why I'm also not saying Jalen Moore right here, because you can't go wrong, especially round 5. If you wanted a guy who you can develop, you go with a guy like Jalen Moore. So I'm totally fine with that. But the reason I'm saying Aaron Banks, first of all, the value I think is the biggest thing. Aaron Banks was projected maybe round 3, round 4, and they took him round 2 over guys like Creed Humphrey, Kendrick Green. I think a lot of people said he might have been a better scheme fit for the 49ers. There's a lot of other guys, Wyatt Davis as well. Could have gone Sam Cosmi. If they thought they could kick him inside the guard, which I don't think they could have, but Cosmi is a beast. I don't know how he fell to 51 or whatever that was. Or they could have gone another position like corner, like running back, and not running back, I should say. I like edge or like linebacker. They could have done that as well. So you can't go wrong with picking offensive lineman. Guard was a bit of a need for the 49ers, but I think the value at 48 for Aaron Banks is a bit rough. Also, you had a lot of teams trying to trade up from, I know we traded back from 43 to 48. I think we could have done it again. The one team in particular is Cleveland. I bet they were on the phone. They got Owusu-Koramoah at 52. I bet they were calling people in the 30s to try to get that guy because it was kind of surprising about how he fell so far down in the draft. So I definitely think you could have got a bit better value, but you cannot, I mean, you really can't go wrong with this draft. All the picks, there's not one pick in particular where I say, I hate this pick. I really like all of this picks. I'm a bit more iffy on the Aaron Banks pick than the other ones, but really not that much. Also, Bay Area kid back in the bet, you have to love that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely,
of course.
Absolutely.
And if I can just piggyback off Sam for a second, I just want to get back to a point you kind of said there for a second, which was that if you looked at the draft, all these guards and interior offensive linemen were getting pushed down the board and just further and further pushed down the board. You look at the amount of guys taken after 50, pick 48, where we were, there were a lot of players available. But then if you look at the corner position, there were a lot less good corners available. So that's where I have the most issue with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people agree with you guys on this one. A lot of Quinn Meniers. Listen, I wasn't a big Quinn Meniers guy personally. I think he was overhyped a little bit. He was a big social media overnight hype sensation.
Well, you didn't watch that workout in the forest? You didn't watch his forest workout? Man, I was sold.
Exactly. So that's my whole thing with him. It's not that he's going to be bad. I just felt like he was a little overhyped. And I really like what Jason
start right away for us.
Yeah, well, right. I like what Jason says. It says Banks is going to be brought in to help Mike with the pass pro. That's exactly it. Every single thing that Banks struggles in, McGlinchey's great at, and vice versa. So I actually think that they're going to play off of each other very well. And, I do like the pick. I agree, though. It could have been a little high. They possibly could have traded back. The guy I'm going to go with, and it has nothing to do with the player because I love the player, but I feel the same way about Trey Sermon personally. When we traded up, I expected we're going corner in this spot. And then when we didn't, I was slightly disappointed. Now, I was happy at the player that we got because I definitely like Sermon, but I feel like we really should have gone corner there, and we didn't. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, at least in the moment, especially because we had just signed Gallman, and it was a little bit of, what are we doing here? Overall, again, I like the player. It's just we waited too long to get corner, and ultimately, whether it was Banks in round 2, Sermon in round 3, one of them has to give in order for you to get a corner. And for me, that pick was Sermon. For you guys, that pick was Banks. But I think we're all on the same page. We should have gone corner earlier than what we did. So the only miss in the draft really sounds like a consensus there. All right. Let's give our overall draft grades for the 49ers. Bay, I'll kick it back to you. A through F, what was your draft grade for the 49ers and why?
I gave it an A-, and I love the draft. From top to bottom, I can't nitpick too many of these picks. There's not much to complain about. We'll have to see how these guys develop. It's always tough to do draft grades before you've even seen them on the field. Right. But I love the draft, so I'm giving it an A-.
Okay, that's fair. Ben?
I'm going to go with a B+, pretty close to your grade too, Bay. And I think for me, the main thing is, a few points I've hit already, which is I think there was just better value. And if you look at overall where they took guys, they could have done better with that. But hey, overall, I liked the draft because if you look at past the quarterback pick, they took 2 guys at each position where we felt like they needed to at least fill some sort of need. And for me, I'm really happy with that because I know some people might not think we necessarily need a running back, but I think with the Trey Lance offense, with what we're building, they're going to need more and more and more running backs. So, I wasn't necessarily even mad at that. I think for me, the biggest issue I have, and Jessie nailed this just a minute ago, was these corners. You can't wait to take a corner after pick 100 and have super high expectations for them. I mean, that's just the reality. So, I just feel like overall, like I said, B+, it was a good draft. There were some great picks. I felt really good overall. I don't think I graded anything less than a B- overall. But, they could have definitely strategically worked it out better. But then if you look at the rest of the NFL, there were a lot of other teams that screwed the drafts up. So you got to be happy with what you have. And I'm certainly very happy.
For sure. Josh says it wasn't possible to go earlier on corner. Samuel was the only one available. I don't understand that critique. So I actually wasn't as big on Samuel as a lot of other people. The guy that I really wanted was Aaron Robinson. He went round 3. So we absolutely could have gotten him in round 2. And then again, right before we took Embry, we had Melifanu go and we had Elijah Molden go. Right, the 2 picks right before us. So if we would have taken one of them with that Sermon pick, then maybe Sermon still could have fallen to us with that later 3rd round pick. Who knows? It's impossible to say. But those are 3 corners right there that we absolutely missed on. And I would have loved to have any one of them over the corner that we drafted first, in my opinion. So, Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying that I disagree with that comment. I think at 43, there was cornerback talent available. You had Asante Samuel. You had Melifanu. You had Elijah Molden. There were a lot of other guys that were available at 43, or they could have, if they did want a cornerback, they could have traded up to get one. As we said before the draft, we don't think they're using all their picks, and they didn't. They traded up to get Trey Sermon. Why not trade up at the beginning of the 1st round? Maybe with the Jets, they were looking to trade out, get a guy. I mean, Tyson Campbell went 33. I'm trying to remember another guy who fell a little bit in the draft later on, but nothing's popping in my head right now. But anyways, you could have got a guy at 43, in my opinion, that could have been a cornerback. And for me, the reason why we didn't take cornerback that early is, I mean, it makes my grade a B+, but I'm not surprised by this whatsoever because this team simply does not value cornerback. The only reason they drafted Ambry Thomas and they drafted Deommodore Lenoir is because they need cornerback depth. This team does not value cornerback at all. They want to bolster in the pass rush. They want to bolster it with the linebacker core. They want the corners to do very little work. And that's why you haven't seen that many corners be brought in. The only big move that we have made at corner is Richard Sherman. Maybe Akella Witherspoon, you could consider a 3rd round pick being a big move, but I wouldn't consider it that. It's really Richard Sherman. Jason Verrett was on like 1 year prove it deal when he came in. He's been on 2 more after that. So that's not really that big for this team. K'Wan Williams, also a guy that was a very under the radar signing at the time. So there's nothing that's been big with cornerbacks. So I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. But on the offensive side of the ball, I really like what we did here. You got Trey Lance. Boom. You got your quarterback for the future. You got Aaron Banks. Boom. You got another protector for Trey Lance, and you can help with McGlinchey, who's struggling in pass pro, with a guy who excels in pass pro. On top of that, you got Austin Watkins. I know we didn't draft him, but he can definitely be the Kendrick Bourne replacement if they want. I thought we could have drafted him if we kept our 7th. We traded it to the Raiders, but overall, I really like Austin Watkins as a player, and Jalen Moore as well, bolstering that offensive line. Keep on doing in that. And then on the defensive side, I mean, even though the cornerbacks, Ambry Thomas, Deommodore Lenoir, not the cornerbacks we necessarily wanted, but still great cornerbacks, gritty cornerbacks, I think it definitely fills the need for the 49ers. And we obviously talked about Talanoa Hufanga. We all love that guy. And also, I'll go back to the undrafted free agents. Not Nick Hilliard. Justin Hilliard, excuse me. That guy's a perfect scheme fit for this 49ers team. When he's healthy, he's a 3-down linebacker easily, or a 4-down linebacker, I should say. Easily. The injuries are really the only concern. This guy was a captain at Ohio State. He possesses everything you want in an NFL linebacker. And if he stays healthy, I think this pick can hit really hard for the 49ers because he's a perfect scheme fit. I think he can do great things in the Bay Area. Absolutely.
Josh Mangold says, but Melly and Melvin went 100 and 101. Yeah, that's my exact point. So we went with Trey Sermon at 88. We could have had either one of those guys, and then with our 102 pick, instead of taking Ambry, we could have taken maybe Sermon's there. I'm not going to guarantee he was, but I feel like we got a great value in Elijah Mitchell. And even if Sermon didn't end up on this team, we would have been okay. I just think that corner spot is one that we definitely needed very bad. And that's why I'm going to agree with you. I think B+ is exactly where I'm ranking it. I think it's a fair grade. Obviously, I'm giving an A++, as many pluses as I can give for the Trey Lance pick. That's my guy. And I think, again, I like every single player that we took. It's just where we took them and who we missed out on. So I can't go and say that we've got an A grade because there are things that I wish we would have done differently. So time will tell. Hopefully it plays out great. And again, the players are extremely solid. I think overall this draft is going to be a great draft because ultimately I expect Trey Lance to be an absolute savage. And as long as he pans out, well, then this draft will be revisionist history and everybody will give it an A. And that's what it comes down to. So
absolutely.
Yeah. No,
and can you bring up, before we move on? Oh, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say that's the point, Jesse. It's like if Trey works out, this is a good draft. If he doesn't, it isn't, you know? So,
yeah.
I mean, well, like 5 years from now, that's just how people are going to look at it.
Yeah. East Bay Chris. I don't know when you're trolling and when you're serious, but you said, I don't think Mitchell makes the team. I don't see it with that guy. What were you going to say, Sam? You wanted me to bring up a comment?
Can you bring up Josh Mangle's comment? If it's a bit up, like, oh my God, that's a horrible take. I kind of just want to explain that really quickly.
Yeah,
Afeto Melifonwu, in my opinion, was a second round talent and could have gone at 43. And that was the consensus on most mock draft boards. Now, it didn't happen in the real draft, but that guy is a second round talent. He absolutely could have gone at 43. And I think that would have been a fantastic pick. I think that would have been an A+ pick for the 49ers because that's where he was getting mocked. I don't know why he fell. Maybe it was teams didn't really need cornerbacks. I don't think we saw that many DBs going round 2 and round 3 after Asante Samuel. So, yeah, Afeto Melifonwu is definitely a second round talent in my opinion. And the Lions got an absolute steal. We definitely could have taken him at 43. But apparently we weren't that high on him. So it is what it is. If we want Ambry Thomas a bit more, I think if we want Afeto Melifonwu, the 88 trade would have been for him, not Trey Sermon. If we get Ambry Thomas, that was the next best option at 102. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
And I just want to make a note with Mfondu. He had some injury stuff that ended up coming out. And also, I know just leading into the process, the days going in, he was one of those guys that people heard was going to fall. So it makes sense with what the noise was around him.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to what our expectations are. I said for Trey. I mean Trey Lance. Let's be clear here. My expectations are our expectations for Trey. Bay, what are your expectations for Trey Lance year 1?
I expect Jimmy to get the first crack at it. And if Jimmy's winning games, then you're going to see more Jimmy. That being said, I still want to get Trey Lance on the field in some capacity. And whether that's, well, I don't want to say a Taysom Hill role because Trey Lance isn't going to play special teams, but third and short or in the red zone or down by the goal line, especially down by the goal line. And that was something that I picked up on with RG3 and Kyle Shanahan. A lot of QB draws down in the goal line, QB power. So having that option to run the ball, throw the ball with the quarterback is very difficult to defend down in the red zone. So that's where I think we're going to see him. And if Jimmy, if we're losing games, you know, by week 5, if we're 2-3 or 1, you know, that's you make the switch. You got to have a quick switch. If Jimmy's not balling, Trey, get warmed up.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And kind of to your point, this is kind of a surprising stat, but Josh Allen actually has more rushing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson does, believe it or not. And so if you look at the body type that we've got in Lance and the running style that we've got in Lance, it's going to be very Josh Allen / Cam Newton. So once you get inside that 5, you've got Sermon, you've got a heavy run to the right or heavy run to the left that you can do. You can kick it to Debo. You can have the quarterback keeper with Trey. I mean, it's going to cause absolute nightmares. So yes, at the very least, that's a package that we should add, whether it's third down and short, you know, inside the 5, what have you. I would expect that as well. Ben, what about you?
I think for me, the expectation for Trey Lance is, how do I phrase this? I think whenever Kyle believes he's ready, he should play. I don't care if that's week 1. I don't care if Jimmy is, you know, if he's 7-0, that's one thing. But, you know, if Jimmy's like 5-2, 4-3, if Trey is ready, you should play him. I think the main thing for me with this, and it's something I've heard a few other people note already, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But the point is with Trey, if you look at him, all of the criticism for him and the questions people have about him are, you know, he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't been on the field yet. He hasn't actually played and done this over a long period of time. So for me, having him sit 1 year when he already missed basically a year of football would be maybe bad for his progression as a quarterback. I want him playing as soon as possible. And quite frankly, I don't understand this, NFL groupthink we've gotten to where people, are like, oh, we need this Patrick Mahomes style rookie quarterback to sit. And that's the way it's going to work. And if he had started, it would have been a huge problem. I call BS on that personally. I just think with Patrick Mahomes, I'm sorry, I think he would have been okay his first year, even if he had played. So overall, just with Trey, if he's ready, he's got to play. And I think with Kyle, and if you look at the rest of this draft, they're trying to build an offense around Trey Lance and that running game. And for me, like, I just think Kyle can completely just build the best running attack in the NFL and the most diverse one at that specifically. If you look at, the Super Bowl year that the 49ers had and the 2012 rookie year with RG3, they both had the same run pass split. So it was 51% run, 49% pass. It was the same in 2019 49ers. And like I said, those 12 RG3 skins. So to me, I think it's got to be an even more amped up version of that offense when we're playing Trey. It's got to be 55, 56, 57, even nearing 60% rush, because I think early on, that's how he's going to succeed. I don't want to put him in a lot of positions where he's not going to, be succeeding, where he's going to have to break down a defense, where he's going to have to make all these tough decisions. I just want to make things easy for him. And I really think Kyle can. And that's why I'm personally so bullish on him playing right away, because I think the mismatch that he creates is going to make life so much easier for this team. And because of that, it's going to make life easier for the rookie quarterback. So, yeah, I think for me, I don't have specific expectations, but the expectation is that if he is ready, he should be playing. Like, no questions about it. I don't care where Jimmy is, where he's at, all that stuff, because I think specifically the reason I say that is because if the Niners are going to make a playoff run at some point in 2-3 years, I want him to get a year of playoff experience in his rookie year potentially, and have that so that once he goes into his second, third year, he has that underneath his belt already and he's ready to play. So I think for me overall, just, I know I've been rambling, but I just don't want to sit him for the sake of sitting him. If he's not ready, that's one thing. But I don't understand, like, if you look at the Lamar Jackson situation a few years ago, what was going on there? That was utter nonsense to me. I mean, maybe he wasn't ready week one, but if you look at the way Joe Flacco was rolling, man, I would have much rather had that than what Lamar Jackson was doing. And specifically with the Niners, if you look at the 2019 team with Jimmy, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. You're telling me that Trey wouldn't be close to that, or he would, like, if you look at all the mistakes Jimmy is making, is my point. It's like the mistakes that Trey is going to make and that Jimmy are going to make. Is it much of a difference? I mean, Jimmy's more seasoned.
We made it to a Super Bowl with 8 runs and an NFC championship.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 passes and an NFC championship. And we just added more running backs and a better offensive line. You don't think that we can do that again? We're going to maul teams. I think you're spot on. I want to get to a couple comments real quick before I kick it to you, Sam. Jason says, kind of like when Tebow was spelling for Chris Leak. Dplex says he needs to learn to slide. Agree with that. That's a point that you've made, Bay. I've heard that. And then Jason comes back and says, I honestly don't want Trey taking those hits. That's why we drafted Sermon and have Wilson Jr. I agree with you. That said, just having him on the field and the threat of him taking that ball adds that extra element again on third.
Of Trey Lance's game. That's a large part.
You're going to have to get used to it. And third down and ones and inside the 5, again, just having that threat it's going to be priceless. It really is. Sam,
Well, I'm sorry. I just want to add this on that last comment. Just for me overall, I think they're moving. You said it, Jesse. People don't want him putting his body on the line. I'm sorry, Niners fans. They're going to be running it's not going to be the same, but they're going to be running almost a Lamar Jackson style sort of offense. I think it's going to be more of a, RG3 2019 Niners, Lamar Ravens kind of hybrid. But this Kyle, people had this idea that going into this, Kyle wanted to pass the ball more. He doesn't. He just wants to run the ball, Yeah. I got to be excited about that. But, I get it. The hits are scary, but we're going to be running the ball a lot. Get used to that.
Absolutely. Sam, what about you? What are your expectations for Trey Lance year one?
So, Ben, I like what Ben said. I like what Barry Baller said. I agree and I disagree a little bit. I think Trey Lance, if he's ready, you play him. You don't sit him just for the sake of sitting him. However, I will say if Garoppolo is balling out, I think you can stick with Garoppolo for a little bit. And the reason being, let me just rephrase. If Garoppolo is playing better than Lance and looks better than Lance in practice, you do that. And the reason being, I don't want a Miami Dolphins situation where there was just every week there was a new quarterback. You had Fitzpatrick one week, Tua the next week. I don't really want that. This is a win now team. Miami was better than that. They exceeded expectations last year. They were not expecting to win right now. So that's a different situation. But for now, you want the best quarterback out there. And that's what Kyle Shanahan does specifically with running backs. He'll give it to the hot hand. He's going to do the same thing with quarterback, I believe. I don't think, even if Jimmy Garoppolo is doing really well, I mean, if Trey Lance is doing better than Jimmy Garoppolo and Jimmy Garoppolo is still doing really well, he won't hesitate to put Trey Lance in there. But if it's the other way around where they're both doing pretty well, I think you might keep Garoppolo in there. Maybe Trey Lance, we'll have to see. He's not going to base it off of, hey, we traded 2 firsts for this guy. Let's play him just for the sake of it. No, you want to play him because he's looking like the better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's my expectation for year 1. I think Garoppolo is going to start out the season like Barry Baller said. That's definitely going to happen. Unless something catastrophic happens, I think that would probably happen. And even if Garoppolo, let's say, suffered an injury in training camp, I think they would move along with Nate Sudfeld to start because, or maybe not. I don't really know. I'm trying to just maybe that rawness aspect got to me a little bit. You just got to figure out, is Trey Lance ready? Is Trey Lance not ready? If he's ready, go for it. And if he's looking better than Garoppolo in practice, go for it. That's what I got to say about the quarterback situation right now and my expectations for Trey Lance.
I think Raymond
he can start week 1. Just saying.
I think Raymond hits the nail on the head. He says, so tell me this. When he finally plays in year 2, let's say, is that not going to be his rookie season? He needs reps. He only played 1 game last season. I agree wholeheartedly with this. I think everybody has this thought that he needs to sit all year. And my expectation is not that he necessarily starts week 1, although if they have a preseason, don't be surprised if he does. But he needs to play this year, and he needs to ultimately be the starter for at least half this season.
Jessie,
you cannot sit. Go ahead.
We got to. We're playing to win the game.
We are.
So if whoever gives you the best chance, if it's Trey, go with Trey. But if he's not quite ready, I mean, he played 1 season in 1 AA. I love Trey Lance. That's who I wanted to pick. But if Jimmy G gives us a better chance at winning, we got a lot of guys on 1-year deals. We got a lot of veterans. This team, I think we can compete for a Super Bowl. So whether it's Jimmy G or Trey Lance, whoever gives you the best chance to win this season, you play him.
And if I can just throw this out there for a second, something I thought about when thinking about this is I just don't think there's a ton of downside to throwing him out there to the Wolves. I mean, you know, it's not like he's going to be behind an offensive line like David Carr and Andrew Luck had, you know. I think he's going to be in a really good position. So, you know, I know people might push back on this, but honestly, I just don't think there's much, if any, downside to playing him right away.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys said. That said, to me, Trey Lance will be ready. My expectation is that he will give us the best option to win before this season is over. And with that, he absolutely needs to play. I just don't think much of Jimmy. I mean, you said it. How many touchdowns did he have and how many interceptions was it been?
27 and 13.
27 and 13. 27 and 13 with 7 lost fumbles. So he had 20 turnovers. And all of us absolutely know that season, which was his best season, there was a good 6 to 10 picks that were left on the table, including in that first round playoff game that we had against Minnesota.
It was bad.
We got so lucky. We easily could have lost that game because of Jimmy's right arm. So that's why we ended up running it only 8 times the next game. The way that I see it is quarterbacks usually struggle early because mentally they aren't ready. Trey Lance mentally is ahead of the curve. It's the reason why a lot of people
like that too.
Right. It's the reason that a lot of people pegged us on Mac Jones because they figured he would be the most ready to start day 1 because of the mental aspect. When in reality, Trey Lance has been the most football smart, ready, high IQ quarterback out of all of these guys this whole entire time. And that is why I think he should start at some point during this season. again, 8 games max, but he will be the best quarterback and will give us the best chance at some point during this season. And that's why that's why I think he needs to play. And again, yes, it's about winning games, but realistically, I hate the win now narrative because I don't think that this is necessarily a Super Bowl team right now. And I'm looking to what's going to give us the best chance long-term. And Trey Lance is that guy. He needs to get reps, period.
Absolutely. And
I agree, but no, this is a Super Bowl. We do have a Super Bowl window. This team is just as talented, minus DeForest Buckner, as the 2019 team.
This team is, but not with Jimmy G at the helm. Jimmy G is not going to be the guy to get us there. So Trey Lance
has zero faith in him.
If that's the case, then you dump Jimmy right now. Why are we spending $30 million on him? Dump him right now. I got players we can re-sign. The rest of the cap that we don't spend rolls over. So if that's the plan, if Trey is ready, then dump Jimmy.
Yeah, well, he may be, but we're not going to know until we get to training camp. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just saying the reason that they haven't done it yet is because teams like the Patriots, the Bears, all these quarterback needy teams all picked up quarterbacks. I mean, I think the only team you could even throw out there at this point is the Washington football team. But besides that, are there any trade destinations for Jimmy? No. So I think even if you are starting Trey Lance week 1, which I'm not expecting that, I'm just saying he could. If you're going to trade Jimmy, now is not the optimal time to do it. Wait till you get closer to the season. Wait till it's closer to week 1 when another team's starter gets injured. Then you trade Jimmy G. You give him the Sam Bradford experience that Carson Wentz had in Philly. So, hey, for me, that's the reason Jimmy's still on the team right now. I don't think Jimmy being there right now is them saying he's going to be there for the whole year. It's just that what are they going to trade him for?
Yeah, I think one of the best points right here is Raymond Martinez. I feel like he's been on point for most of this night.
I love Raymond. Raymond kills it.
They have to sell it to the team, and not only sell it to the team, but they have to sell it to Trey Lance. They have to let him know that, hey, you actually won this job. It is your team. He won the job. You all saw what we saw. It's time for the kid to take over, and that will go a long way, a lot further, in my opinion, than maybe the 4th or 5th round pick that you could get for Jimmy right now. That's just my personal opinion. So I am in full agreement with that comment right there. Okay, so very heated discussion. I love it. Very passionate. Let's just talk about it right now. Bay, you said that this is a Super Bowl contending team. Where do we rank in the NFC West as of right now after the draft? Go ahead, make your point.
Number 1. I think this is a very tough division. This is the toughest division in football. So we might be 4th, but the way I see it, we have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. The 49ers are my squad. Why would I not put them at number 1? Number 2, I'm going with the Rams. I like Stafford. I think they got a good team, right? So I'm going Rams 2. Although their draft, can we talk about their draft for a second?
Oh, that was one of the worst drafts out there, man.
Was it worse than Seattle's, though?
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, they only had Seattle.
Undrafted free agency.
Yeah, that's true.
Seattle only had 3 picks, but 2 of them were guys that I really liked that we actually talked about on our mock draft. Eskridge and Trey Brown. So the Seahawks they took a couple of my guys, so I can't really hate on their draft. But the Rams draft, Tutu Atwell in the 2nd round, that was a guy who I wouldn't have touched in the I was not a fan of that pick. But I'm going Rams 2. I got the Seahawks 3rd in the division. And then in 4th, I got the Arizona Cardinals. They got to prove me something. Kyler Murray is a phenomenal player. He's electric. But you know what? I think we're seeing some flaws with his height. I mean, being 5'9", 5'10", seeing over the 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" offensive lineman, it's really an issue. I see him missing guys downfield. He's always looking to escape the pocket. So while Kyler Murray is dynamic, I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury believer. I got the Cardinals 4th.
Okay. All right. Ben, what about you?
So I'm going to go with pretty similar rankings. I'm going to flip 1 and 2, though. I do have the Rams 1st in the division. And for me, the biggest reason is that they fixed their biggest hole. They fixed their biggest need, and they upgraded significantly. They took a a team with a top 25 quarterback to a team to a top 10 to 15 quarterback. And to me, that's going to be one of the biggest jumps of the season. And more of that is just about how Sean McVay is going to get to open up his offense a lot more. Let's be real. Jared Goff isn't exactly the type of guy who gives you a lot of options and is going to create a really diverse offense. So I think this was a really good Rams team. They lost some depth, but if you look overall, that's still a really, really good defense. I mean, really, it is, even if you want to be critical of it. And then I think with them, I love their running back, Cam Akers. So I think they're first, but I'm going to put a second. And I think one of the main reasons I'm going to put a second is because of the loss of a guy like Kendrick Bourne. To me, that's tough. They just haven't replaced those snaps. And I think if you look at this team independent of the quarterback's position, they probably have one of the best, if not the best roster in the entire division. But with me, you have that question at quarterback. We're going to be making that transition. So I think it's going to be harder to have that consistency throughout the year. For that reason, I put the Rams above us. And then I go Seattle third over the Cardinals, more because of the coaching. I think, like Eric was saying, I don't think those teams are too dissimilar in terms of talent and where they're at. But I really don't think Cliff Kingsbury is an NFL coach, maybe not even a Power 5 head coach. So to me, even though Kyler Murray is special, I really think he's special. I think that kid is ridiculous. Cliff Kingsbury, it's tough. So that's how I got to go with it. And I think I just want to end on this. I think the real reason I put the 49ers behind the Rams, and I could see that not being the case. I could see us being first. But the reason I did it, like I said, was because the Rams have that veteran. They're bringing in Matt Stafford. The 49ers, we're going to be figuring out our QB situation, so it's a little tougher.
Okay. Well, we've got to settle this score in the chat. Let me run up here, and I'm going to drop it to you, Sam, to answer first, and we'll kick it around, and then we'll get your rankings in the division, Sam. Amin the Dream says, I have a question for the crew. Who is a better head coach, Shanahan or McVay? Sam?
That's tough. Oh, boy. I want to say Kyle Shanahan. I feel like I'm going to be biased. I think when you look at both teams, both offenses, both are offensive-minded head coaches. They've just done phenomenal jobs with their teams, respectively. I'm going to go with – it's tough. I'm going to go Sean McVay here. I think Kyle Shanahan is the better offensive mind, but at the same time, I think Sean McVay has the better execution, and the execution is what matters, in my opinion. So I'm going to give the upper hand to Sean McVay. They're so close. You got two of the best head coaches in the league right there, but I'm going to go Sean McVay for this.
Okay. All right. What about you, Bay?
It's tough. It's a tough one. I'm leaning Kyle Shanahan because I'm going with my guy. But if we're looking at wins and losses over the last, 4 years or so, I'm pretty sure McVay's got more W's in the column. They both made a Super Bowl, so there's some comparisons. But I just want to roll with my guy. I mean, we've had injuries at the quarterback position 2 out of the last 3 years. So I'm rolling with my guy, Shanny. When we get our quarterback, when we get Trey up to speed, I think it's really going to shift in Shanahan's direction.
Okay, fair enough. Ben, what about you?
I think it's really tight, and honestly, I've kind of gone back and forth a few times just before thinking about what I was going to say. But if I am going to give an edge to someone, I'll give an edge to McVay, and it's for this reason. It's because I think while Kyle is the better offensive mind, like Sam was saying, he's the better offensive coordinator, I think Sean McVay is probably the better head coach and CEO, in terms of overlooking the team, in terms of being a true CEO of a team, because that's what you have to be when you're a head coach of an NFL team. So, I just got to get the slight edge because of that. And if you're going to compare the 2 Super Bowls, one made it with Jimmy G, one made it with Jared Goff, and I don't think very highly of Jared Goff.
Oh, if you think he's that much worse than Jimmy G, yeah, you don't think highly of him. My gosh.
I don't.
I'm going to go slightly Shanahan, and for 2 reasons. One, he's made the Super Bowl twice in the last 5 years, I believe. I get it. One was an offensive coordinator, and one was as a head coach. He was able to bring two very different style teams to the Super Bowl. If you look at his history coaching, he's had a top-tier running offense and a top-tier passing offense. And then you add in the fact that when McVay and the Rams team have been at their best, Shanahan has owned them, regardless of who has been playing for us. For some reason, McVay just cannot get past Shanahan. He's lucky that they don't ever run into each other in the playoffs because for whatever reason, Shanahan is kind of his daddy and proves it every single time they play. So
That's a hell of a
have
point.
to give the edge
That's a hell of a
to
point.
Shanahan.
Yeah.
All right,
That's true.
let's kick it back to you, Sam. Give us your 1 through 4 in the division.
All right, 1 and 2. I mean, this is such a tough division. I think 1, I'm going to give the upper hand to the 49ers simply because they have one of the deepest teams in the league all around. You look at that starting lineup, the starting lineup is basically set, and it was set before the draft as well. I think the only two things that are going to change in the draft, right guard and quarterback. That's really it. Everything else was set, and they added depth. You got that strength in numbers right there, which I really like for the San Francisco 49ers. 2, 3, and 4 are definitely – it's so tough, this division, so unpredictable. I'll go with a bold take. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. And I think they would be 1 if Cliff Kingsbury weren't their head coach. Cliff Kingsbury is one of – I have zero faith in him. Thank God he's the coach there for us. But I believe that the Cardinals are going to be number 2. That team is just talented across the board, especially on offense. You have Kyler Murray. Running back, it's iffy. You have James Conner. You have Chase Edmonds. It's decent. But then you look at that wide receiving core. DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, who I think AJ Green's going to do better than most people expect. I don't think he was ever getting a chance in Cincinnati. And Rondale Moore. That's scary to say the least. And you look at the other teams in the NFC West, the only real secondary that a lot of teams have is the Los Angeles Rams. They have a Jalen Ramsey. None of the other teams really improved their secondary. So I think the Cardinals are going to be a very offensive-heavy team and really bolster just everything. They didn't address their cornerback situation. They went Zaven Collins instead. I think that's a really good pick for them. But it's a common theme within the NFC West. No one's really addressing their cornerback situation.
Well, they got a corner. They got a corner in the 6th. I like Gowan. Tay Gowan.
They did get Tay Gowan.
They got
he
a
is
steal
a bit of a developmental project, but he's still a great guy. Shout out to him for following me on Twitter too. That's awesome. But yeah,
that's
he
nice.
He was tweeting out today like, let me know if I don't follow you back. He followed me a while ago, but still, he seems like a great person. So shout out to him. And hopefully he does well in Arizona for him, not necessarily for us, but we'll see. That could be definitely a sleeper in my opinion as well. 3rd, I'm going to go with the Rams. I think that offense is just going to be another one of the best offenses in football. You have Matthew Stafford, you have Cam Akers, you have Robert Woods, you have Cooper Kupp. Your offensive line, solid, could have improved a bit more. It's okay. They did lose Gerald Everett. Their tight end situation's a bit iffy, I believe. I forget if they added someone. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with them 3rd. They did lose some key defensive pieces that they did not really address in the draft. You look at their draft, what they did. The Los Angeles Rams, Tutu Atwell, I absolutely hate that pick. After that, they went Ernest Jones and Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown definitely fills the need. Ernest Jones fills that middle linebacker need as well. Robert Rochelle, that is a guy I was very low on as well out of Central Arkansas. The film just did not hit me at all. I did not really like what I saw from Robert Rochelle. That's the only cornerback they drafted. And then other than that, they lost a nickelback in Troy Hill. They lost a safety in John Johnson. They didn't address that at all in the draft. So I definitely think that's why they're going to be 3rd. Their defense might be a bit worse this year. And then 4th, I'm going to go Seattle. And when I say 4th Seattle, I think this is another hot take. Every team in this division is going to have a winning record. I don't know if that's happened before, but I definitely think that can happen. I'm not saying Seattle's a bad team. They're still a great team. They are still a playoff threat. But you look at their team, they don't really have much, honestly. They have 2 good receivers, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They added Tamorrion Terry, my guy, Dwayne Eskridge, Bay Area Ballers guy, Eric's guy, I should say. But, the receiving core is decent. You have Russell Wilson. You have Chris Carson. They didn't address offensive line until the 7th round. That's scary. Their defense got worse. You lost Shaq Griffin. You lost Quinn Dunbar. Who's playing cornerback now? I don't really know if I'm being completely honest. Richard Sherman could be a possibility. I don't know. They did bolster the defensive line, but in all honesty, I mean, they didn't do much. You had Alden Smith. Oh, they Akella Witherspoon. That's a signing I actually really like for them. I think that
DJ Reed. They got our guys.
DJ Reed, dude. Honestly, I'm still upset about that. How DJ Reed just did so poorly here and then balled out in Seattle. It all the time just didn't seem like he cared here, and then now he's balling out in Seattle. But that's besides the point.
Smith. It's the all-Niner team over there.
They're building the Niners. So I think the pass rush they definitely improved on. I will give them that. But other than that, I think it's going to be so close, this division. I think you could honestly see a three-way tie for first place, if I'm being completely honest. 3 11-6 teams, 12-5 teams, because now there's 17 games. Something like that could very much happen in this division.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think all 4 teams definitely can make the playoffs. It's a statistical possibility with the 7th team being added. And it's hard for me to put us first because we have the worst QB situation. For future, obviously, I love Trey Lance, but he's still a rookie, no matter how you slice it. And let's assume that Jimmy's the starter day one. Well, we all know what we think about Jimmy. So that's kind of where I'm at right there. Is it's really hard for me to put us first. But then the flip side is we're going to have an extremely easy schedule, and you add in the rest of the positions. I honestly think when you break it down, when you look at defensive line, top to bottom, we probably have the best defensive line in the division. When you look at linebackers, top to bottom, we probably have the best linebacking core in the division. You go to secondary, again, top to bottom, probably the best secondary in the division. Then you kick it over to the offense. We probably have the best offensive line. We probably have the best receiving weapons with Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle. And you add all 4 of those running backs. And again, we probably have the best running back. So at some point, when you're the best everywhere else in the division, it's hard not to be first, no matter who that quarterback is. So I'm going to put us first, just barely in the division. Number 2 for me is still Arizona. Again, I hate Cliff Kingsbury, but the rest of that team is so dang good. They have such great veteran leadership over there. I think that they can overcome it. And Kyler Murray is an absolute superstar on the rise. I love what Kyler Murray brings to the game. Number 3, I'm going to go with Seattle. Just because Russell Wilson is not going to finish last in this division, I don't care what it takes. It's not going to happen. And number 4, I'm going to go with the Rams. The reason being is this. I think Stafford gets a little too much praise for what he hasn't delivered on in the NFL. Yes, he is an upgrade. Absolutely. But for what they gave up, Stafford to me holds the ball way too long. It's the reason that I didn't like Fields. And when you look at his time to pressure versus his sacks, those numbers don't line up. He holds the ball way too long. And I think in this division, with the pass rushers that are coming at him, it's going to be an issue. And then let's talk about the defense. They have some great individual players, but they are one injury away with literally no depth from struggling mightily. They lost all the extra depth they had because they were so far over the cap. They've mismanaged it for the last 3 or 4 years, quite frankly. Then they made it worse by trading for Stafford. They are going to be in a world of hurt if, and quite frankly, when that injury comes, because it is a 17-week season. Who knows what training camps are going to look like again? It's going to be an issue for them, and I ultimately think that they finish last in the division. But again, they also can make the playoffs. So that's where I'm at with it.
They lost some good players. They lost Brockers, the safety, and the safety
John
Johnson.
John
Johnson, Corey Hill.
Yeah, they lost some good players.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, last topic. Sam, I'm going to start with you on this one. How would you round out the roster to get us in contention and ready for the regular season?
To round out the roster, I would probably go a bit more linebacker depth. I definitely like, as I said earlier, the Justin Hilliard signing. Really like that. I also like I think it's Elijah something out of Kansas State. He seems like a pretty decent player too. But those 2 guys apparently are primarily special teams role guys from what I've heard. Specifically Hilliard, I know for sure. The Kansas State linebacker, I need to do a bit more research on. But I definitely think they could improve a little bit more with another linebacker if they could sign. Because as I said on our stream on Tuesday on my channel, you have 3 guys backing up who Demetrius Fillingham-Fowles, I definitely think they have more faith in him than I did at the time. So I'm not going to talk about him. But otherwise, Jonas Griffith and Nathan Jerry, I don't really want to go into the season with that. I think maybe adding another linebacker would be a good idea. Also, one other thing, a pass-catching tight end. I still think we need that. I know we got this guy, Josh Peterson, from Louisiana Monroe, I believe it is. He's Doug Peterson's son. He's an undrafted free agent. He was a one-year wonder, went undrafted. I never heard of the guy until we took him. So I personally think they could go another pass-catching tight end. I don't know how many guys are out there for that, but that could be a good idea. A lot of people, I feel like one of you guys may say wide receiver. Before you say that, here's why I don't think we're going to take a wide receiver is a few reasons. First of all, the fact that they didn't take one shows that they believe in Jalen Hurd. And second of all, they got Austin Watkins to help with that wide receiver depth. That is a guy I really like. That guy should have been drafted. So we're very lucky to have him on this team. But linebacker depth and a receiving tight and a pass catching tight end are the two things that I'm hoping that the Niners can add.
Okay. All right. Ben, what about you?
I think for me, when I'm looking at how to round out this roster, I want to try and lean even more into this big bruising bully team that we're going to build with Trey Lance. And to me, there's offensive things we need to address, but first I want to start with the defense. I think we still need to address the secondary position. If we get one injury, we're one Jason Verrett injury away from being derailed, honestly, I feel, because if you look at our secondary beyond that, it starts getting really thin once you take Jason Verrett off that depth chart. And to me, that's just the way the NFL is going. Teams need more and more and more corners. If you look at what the Miami Dolphins are doing, they don't think they have enough corners, and they already have some of the best in the league. So I want to go and get more corners. For me, that's one of the more important things. With our front seven, I don't necessarily disagree with Sam, but I feel in free agency and overall, they've addressed a lot of the depth that they need to in the front seven. I might disagree with you a little bit on the linebacker position, just because I think they are shored up in that position. And just with the way everything in the NFL is going, linebackers are becoming less and less important. Not that, they aren't important at all, but corners are just so much more important with the passing offense, as you see in the NFL. But if I'm going to go to the offense, one thing I definitely want to see them add is another pass catcher, and that can be at tight end or wide receiver. But to me, it has to be someone who's going to complement Trey Lance's skill set better, or add that Kendrick Bourne type of role that we just don't have right now. If we're going to go and get a receiver, we need a possession receiver, a third down receiver, a red zone threat. But if we're going to go with a tight end instead of a wide receiver, get someone who can block, someone who can get in there. And so when we have Kittle, we can have Kittle and that tight end who might be better than Dwelly in terms of blocking. And you can build this bruising run offense. To me, that's the important thing is building around that run offense that we're going to have in the future. That's going to be, even though it's all the old Shanahan stuff we love, it's going to be a lot more power. It's going to be a lot more of what Trey Lance does and what fits his skill set really well. So to me, you got to get those blocking tight ends, even though I think we have two really good tight ends, but even then, hey, if they want to go get another running back, even though they already have a lot, go and do it, because we're going to be running the ball a lot. I don't agree with that. Austin Watkins is quite Kendrick Bourne right now, but who knows, in a few years, if he develops right, he could be a worthwhile player for this team. I have to agree a lot with Sam. I loved what he said. I think our best day three, overall move was picking up Austin Watkins on undrafted free agency. In terms of value, that was a guy Niners fans wanted to be drafted at 194. So yeah, overall, but if I'm just going to round out the roster, another pass catcher potentially, just something to make the offense a little more dynamic, because like we've seen with Debo and Ayuk, they can get injured. And if both of those guys are injured, that's scary. So yeah, yes. I definitely want to add one more pass catcher.
All right.
And also, can I just touch on his touch on this cornerback point really quickly? There are still a lot of free agent quarterbacks out there. I'll just read a few. Josh Norman, Jason McCourty, Brian Poole, Brashad Breeland, Garyon Conley. You could get Nickel Roby-Coleman for the slot. Dre Kirkpatrick could be a good option. There's a lot of good options out there. I didn't even Darquise Dennard, did he sign somewhere? I don't really know. I'm just looking at Spot Track right now. Dare I say it, Richard Sherman could come back.
Hey, he could. And if you even look, there's a guy there's a guy like J.C. Jackson available. There's a lot of things available. And I just want to make this point really quick before I hand it off. The Niners are going to have a great opportunity if they get rid of Jimmy G to build this team up even more. You know, that's got to be scary for the rest of the division. They have 20 million that they're going to be playing with essentially. So if we're looking at that second wave of free agency, Niners are going to be that team that's going to take advantage. They can get some either one big splash guy or add 3, 4, 5 guys for depth. So we'll have a lot of options no matter what, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Early says, do you think that Warner could potentially show more in year 2? Yeah, I agree. I mean, as a blocker, you said that you wanted the blocker at tight end. Ben,
Yeah.
he's the guy. He's on that roster. So I think that in that aspect, he definitely can show us a little bit more. Bay, what about you? How would you like to round out the roster?
One more thing. I was just shaking my head on that comment because as a pass catcher, I don't really see him being the pass catcher. Just want to put that in really quick.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'll let Eric talk now. I've been talking for too long.
No, you're
hey,
good.
Sam. Good. Well, let me tell you something. I watched Charlie Warner's high school highlights. The guy was a running back, and this was when we drafted him last year, and it made me think that he had some potential after the catch because he was electric as a high schooler, but we all know the NFL is a different game. I think he actually could add a little bit in the past, kind of like a Selleck. Remember we had some Selleck time? I think he could make some Selleck type plays.
Warner
I think
time.
he could. I think, yeah. And I was checking
you went a little Mel Kiper on me. He could make some Selleck type plays. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I've been watching too much ESPN lately, But guys, I was checking out some remaining free agents, and there's a pass rusher who has spent some time with a Bosa, and he's had some success in his career. He's had some injuries, but he's a gentleman by the name of Melvin Ingram. He's a consummate pro. He's the pro's pro. And if we were to bring him in, we wouldn't need to put him out there for 30 or 40 snaps a game. You know, give him 15 snaps, some pass rushing reps. Let him work opposite of Bosa or rotate him in because I don't think Bosa is going to get the same usage that he had in 2019. Another veteran, I like our defensive tackles. You know, I know we've brought in Kerr. We brought in, Kinlaw. We want Kinlaw to take a step. But Geno Atkins is out there, and I know he's old, but I love Geno Atkins. So if for the right price, same thing. He might be able to give you just a bonus if you limit his snaps, tell him go all out for his 10 snaps, Geno Atkins. And Sam, you were talking about the receiver position. You don't think maybe we don't need to address it? I got one guy who I think could help us out, and he's out there, and it's Golden Tate. I know he's said something in the past that, I would never play for the Niners. He was a Seahawk or whatnot. Hey, but when it's contract season and you're looking around and thinking, I think the Niners might look pretty appealing if we give him a call. I've always liked how Golden Tate is good after the catch. We know Kyle Shanahan likes his yak. Golden Tate's a yak guy. He's also had some injuries when he's with the Giants. I had him in fantasy, and I dropped him early on. You don't want Golden Tate for fantasy purposes. But
Ryan
Kerrigan, that's another guy. Because while we have brought in some pass rushers, you can never have too many pass rushers. So if a veteran is available, bring him in. The last receiver that I would maybe consider that's available on the market is Danny Amendola, another veteran, slot guy, something to consider.
Okay. Yeah.
And we know he won't mind working with Wes Welker. We know that.
No, he definitely won't mind working with Wes Welker. That's for sure. Yeah. So for me, I agree with you. Bay, you said Golden Tate. That was kind of who I mentioned last Tuesday. So I'm in full agreement with that. I think Golden Tate fits perfectly for what we want to do. So I absolutely love that. And another name that you mentioned, Sam, was Brian Poole. So there is rumor right now that Sherman is choosing between Seattle and San Francisco. I like Richard Sherman. I would love him as a mentor if he's willing to come off the bench. But I don't think Sherman is that type of guy, and you've got to be willing to start him. And I'm just not willing to do that at this point in his career. I think he's an absolute liability when we want to go man press. And quite frankly, we've got a team that is built to do that outside of bringing Sherman in. I think he's got a little too much of an ego where he's not going to be a guy that comes in when somebody's injured. So for that reason, I want to pass on Richard Sherman. But Brian Poole is a guy that I would love to bring in. Super underrated. He's rotted away a little bit with the Jets, but he is a very good nickel type corner and just gives us that added depth that I feel like we still need in the secondary. Drake Kirkpatrick could be another guy. So for me, bring in a veteran that can help these rookies out, at the same time compete, play, but please not Richard Sherman. That's my only thing that I'm going to say is unless Sherman is willing to come off the bench, I don't want him back. It's time to move on.
If he's on the
Sherman.
field, if he's on the field, you're almost telling the offense that you're in zone because he's not keeping up with deep crossers anymore. We saw him get burnt in the 2019 playoffs numerous times. Sammy Watkins, Devontae Adams. Sherman, thank you, but no thank you.
Listen, if he goes back to Seattle, I think that's a major advantage for us. And I would expect that we picked on him, just to be frank with you. And you look at guys like Ayuk, who can give him a good double move. Debo, just get him out in the open field against him. I think it would be a major disadvantage for Seattle. And again, unless he's willing to come off the bench, I'm just not willing to have him back. But we do need some depth at the secondary because if Rhett goes down, we are in a world of hurt. So
yeah, we are.
That's where I'm at with it. All right, Sam, before we get out of here, A, is there anything that you want to add? And B, how can the people find you? Again, real quick, all the links to what they're about to say are in the description of the video. So please like and subscribe. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, well, my Twitter is right here at NinerWire Sam. You can find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is NinerWire. Does not have an S in the end. People get that confused a lot. It's NinerWire, no space in between. There's no S in that name. Also, I'm the co-host of Talking Niners. We started streaming on my YouTube channel yesterday, so make sure to check that out. We are available on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you want to find us, wherever you listen to your podcast, go ahead. And the only other thing I got to say is thank you, Jessie, for having us on. And you guys, this crew of 4 always kills it every stream. So I look forward to doing many streams with you guys in the near future.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I look forward to doing it again for sure. B. Dan Gotti says, not 49er related, but Don Shula has passed away at 90 years old. Well, prayers and thoughts go to his family. We're talking about an all-time great coach, top 5 coach of all time, a pioneer in the sport. That's definitely sad to hear. Ben, what about you? How do we find you?
I'll start on that in a sec, but I do have to say with Don Shula, that's awful. I mean, I'm my dad is a longtime Miami Dolphins fan. I'm very familiar with the franchise, and that's.
I'm pretty sure he died a year ago today. Not
did he?
Today. It was a year ago today.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because I'm looking.
Like
I just searched. I didn't see a tweet
away
from Adam Schefter, so I googled it. It was a year ago today that Don Shula died.
All right. Well,
I didn't even know he died. So there we go.
Retrospective thoughts and prayers, but hey, if people want to check me out, my Twitter's right here at by Ben Meyerson. I talk a lot of crap online, so come at me. I'm ready.
Yeah, May 4th, 2020. You're right. Dang.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, Jessie. Thanks for confirming that. I appreciate that. And then if you look right there at my Twitter, my YouTube is just my name, Ben Meyerson. So you can find me on YouTube there, and you can expect a lot more Niner content. I'm hoping to have a few of these guys here. Maybe we can have a round table on my channel one of these times.
That'll be fun.
But yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited for the future. You know, I'm a full-time student and I have this summer off, so I can finally get to work on this now. So I'm really excited for that. And if people like what I do, they enjoy what I'm saying, go check it out. And then I do want to end on this really quick. I probably said this earlier, I don't know how many times, but I'm so excited for Trey Lance and this running offense that we're going to build. I mean, I really do think it's so funny how everyone was so obsessed with they're trying to get their own Patrick Mahomes. They're trying to get this great passer. Kyle said, screw that. Kyle wants to run the ball, and I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. Bay, what about you? How can we find you?
Yes, sir. Bay Area Baller 18 on Twitter, just like you see it on YouTube. Bay Area Baller 18, no spaces. If you like film breakdowns and want to see some film, not only do I like to talk Niners, but I like to break down the film and check out the all 22. So, I broke down the 2012 Redskins with RG3 and Kyle Shanahan, Brandon Ayuk top 25 plays. I've broken down Jimmy G. Check out the YouTube. Jessie, I have so much fun on this roundtable. Sam, Ben, I love talking to you guys. You guys get me fired up. And I appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, the links to their YouTube channels are in the description. Make sure you go subscribe. And to those of you that are already subscribed to us at Last Second Sports, we appreciate you immensely. Art, and who's the other one? We had Art, and we had B. Dan Gotti. You guys that are watching over on Twitter or Periscope, please make the jump over to YouTube. It goes a long way. So come over to YouTube, like and subscribe. Major, major help. Appreciate that. And I believe, let's see, I'm thinking about my schedule for the rest of the week. Tomorrow I'll be on with Grant. We've got 49ers After Dark. That'll be over on Grant Cohn's channel. And then Thursday, cannot miss. And then Thursday, I'm going to be back with the normal crew. We are going to be grading the AFC draft. So do not miss that. Guys, thank you so much for joining me once again. I love this crew. We will absolutely do it again, whether it's one of your channels or back here with mine. We will do it again sooner than later. You guys all have a fantastic night. And to everybody that tapped in, once again, we appreciate you.
See ya.